Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, today I want to talk about the bizarre topic of meaningful character death. That just sounds weird, doesn't it? Anyhow, let's see. Let me make sure I get the right name. Andy Turner, member of the RPG Brigade group on Facebook, posted an interesting question about character death and how many people have had their characters die in RPGs and have killed other players' characters as a game master and whatnot. And so it's been a great discussion. Not a very old discussion, but great points made all the way around already. And I've certainly had some videos in the past about character mortality and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to go too much, repeat myself too much, I don't think. But one of the interesting things that came up was the idea that some people had where they wanted a character death, if it had to occur, for it to be meaningful. They didn't like a senseless character death. In fact, it didn't occur in this discussion, but I swear I was watching a video by John from Red Dice Diaries, great channel by the way. Oddly enough, he wasn't talking about Fate. He was talking about I think he was talking about Dungeon World, not Apocalypse World, but Dungeon World, the variant of that, and talking about it had a mechanic in there where if you were to die, via a roll of the dice, and it wasn't a particularly epic or meaningful moment, what you could do is have your character marked for death, and then agree with the game master that okay, well this needs to happen, and then when it's a more suitable moment, then the character would die, and it would be cooler, more meaningful, and so. I'm not really gonna. I'm gonna try to. See, same old G is already making fun of me because I'm trying to be too nice. But I'm not gonna, argue. It's just kind of like this is my take on that whole thing. Is I'm not so into meaningful character death, which doesn't mean that I don't like it. I mean, I'd rather if a character of mine dies that it's meaningful, or that epic is always cool too. But sometimes what happens is, what happened was you died at this really inopportune time, and it wasn't all that cool, and it wasn't necessarily all that meaningful. It was just kind of a senseless death. Senseless sometimes because the dice just rolled that way, and senseless sometimes because it really didn't have a heck of a lot of meaning in the game world. And I'm okay with that. Personally, I haven't said in the thread in one way or another, I don't remember now, that I like a game, that has real risks. Real rewards, real risks. How lethal a game is varies. It varies by system. It varies by the social contract. However, whatever. However, to me, like if a game doesn't have any kind of risk of character mortality, then it's not very interesting to me. That said, there's times when you die and it's not all that awesome. You never want your character to die. But I'll give you some examples of some deaths I had in one campaign, which were, and other people's deaths and near deaths too, because I think that's important because these were just a die roll away from being dead. It was lucky. I had a character die, literally by being bitten by a poisonous spider twice. And the guy, the way it works is like, the poison kept on working. He failed whatever save it was, and he was able to make a speech for a minute before he died. And it was meaningless. Had a guy, die from the old poison needle trap in the door, forgot to check for it. Boom, dead. Totally meaningless. Not very epic at all. I think it was first or second time playing the guy, as a matter of fact. Had the epic wizard death that I've talked about probably a million times, where he saved the party, but at his own, cost of his own life. Watch people die from getting eaten by sea monsters, just kind of a random encounter, boom, lose party members that way. Drowning or otherwise being eaten. Watched people, take a risk, and use some artifact and fail save, and their soul was sucked to, the equivalent of hell in that world. Had a character almost die by being frozen to death, failing survival rolls, trying to find an entrance back into a cave, while he's outside in wet clothes in the middle of winter, And the only reason I didn't die is just because I finally rolled well, So not so epic. If you died, that would have been a real bummer. But you get the point. And I can go on and on. Not all of them have to be epic. I can't say I've enjoyed them all, but some of them I look back and man, that was really funny. Now now that you think of it, that's how you died. Sometimes it was epic, sometimes it wasn't. To me, I understand the sentiment of why you want them to be meaningful and or epic or occur at a great time, but I'm not such a story-driven guy. I like a good story. I like when, the story that emerges, to use the kind of vernacular of the brigade, and some members there. I like it when that's cool and really satisfying. However it turns out is okay by me. Sometimes it's like, oh man, I wish it turned out differently. But I prefer the real consequences, in this fictional world, when they really happened. And, so that, to me, what that does is when they are epic, death or not, or whether it's a success, that it feels like I earned it. You know, I don't want to sit back and wonder, did I really jump the Grand Canyon or not? You know, maybe some of you will catch that reference from Runeslinger. So yeah, so that's my take on meaningful character death. Great when it happens, but I don't want to force it or create it when it didn't really happen that way. That's my take. What's yours? What's your opinion on all this?